Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Boards, a series by Scoop Bar where we dive into the heart of the mechanical keyboard hobby. We honestly have a special guest who has made waves in his innovative design and captivating storytelling. Joining us today is Matthew Encina. Matthew's a celebrated creative professional with a rich history in design and advertising and content creation. He's worked on projects with giants like Xbox and Coldplay, earning multiple awards along the way. And recently, he produced something really cool in our community with the launch of the Encore keyboard. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
First off, I want to start with congratulations on the successful launch of the Encore. When I watched the documentary detailing the journey, it was nothing short of inspiring. So I'd love to kind of hear a little bit from you. Like, how does it feel for you to see community's reaction to your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Seeing the community's reaction to something that I've been working on for the past year with the team at Mode, it's something that's up until that point, I think it's it makes me very anxious because we spent so much time looking at every corner, every detail, trying to make everything feel and look and work as good as possible. But, we're only a small handful of people. And, with anything, putting it out in the community, more people are going to experience it. And you just hope that their experience is as good as you imagine it would be. But until that moment, you're just always questioning in the back of your mind, is it good enough? Is it good enough? Is it good enough? And then it's released. And then you hear the feedback. And the feedback, luckily, has just been overwhelmingly positive. I've heard nothing but really good things about the project. And it makes me feel good that the instincts and the gut intuition that I had going into this project and the decisions that we made along the way were the right ones, right? And that's another thing too, kind of as you work through a project, you have to make very hard decisions at certain milestones in the project where at the beginning it's very lighthearted, there's not really much commitment. But as you get closer to launching it, after you've spent a lot of time and money in prototypes and there's already a lot invested into it, it becomes a little bit more pressure behind making sure that it's right. So it feels good to release all of that emotion and kind of pent up expectation and anticipation about the project. And it's nice that it's in people's hands and people get to experience it.
I mean, you've done a lot of design and releasing products, so you're telling me the butterflies doesn't go away no matter what.
No, never. And I think one of the reasons why the butterflies don't go away, even if I've worked on multiple projects, every project is slightly new for me. There's always an aspect of it that's a new challenge where it's not like I'm reproducing the same thing again and again, right? Every big project I take on usually is something I take on for an aspect of growth, meaning something that I can learn from, challenge myself in a new way, and express my creativity in a new form, one way or the other. And that's why the butterflies never go away, because I'm always going into a little bit of uncharted territory, and I want to make sure that I navigated it properly and hopefully that what I anticipated is what people are experiencing.
You've had an impressive career in design. I'm a huge GrowthMate fan. I have tons of their stuff. So even your collaboration with them, I remember seeing, the process of it, releasing of it, and your work on Coldplay's interactive music video, Ink, is legendary. So just reflecting on your journey, how has your design philosophy evolved over the years? And how did that evolution influence the design of the Encore specifically and the documentary?
Yeah, so when I first started in my creative career, everything is brand new, right? I don't know up from down. I just have a little bit of confidence and some skills that I got out of school, and then luckily some opportunities to use those skills. And in a lot of those early opportunities, a lot of the projects I took on were brand new challenges, things I had never done before. So a lot of my first projects were in animation, in motion design, when motion design was still very young and it was still very DIY, meaning that there weren't robust, clean pipelines, technical ways to do things. We were still working in SD and we had to hide everything in design. We just kind of had to throw and slap everything together so that it looks right in that frame, in that moment, in that 30 seconds that that TV commercial is going to be on screen. And in during that time, which is the early 2000s, motion design was very mixed media still. So you're taking from a lot of different disciplines where that comes from, stop motion, cell animation, 3D, live action, and you're putting things together in novel ways that haven't really been done before. So going through those early experiences in my career developed a sense of this DIY-ness in my approach where as a designer, you'll always figure it out. If you have a budget or a project that you have momentum on, and then a deadline that you have to finish by, somehow you'll figure it out. And with a lot of these projects that I did early on, there's two parts to it, right? You pitch an idea, you win the idea, and then you actually have to make it. And with a lot of those things, usually we'll, paint frames that are just moments of what a potential commercial could be like. And if a client really likes it, they'll buy that idea, they'll award the project to you, and then at that point you have to figure out how to actually make it. And a lot of those types of moments develop this we'll figure it out kind of mentality, and has continued throughout my journey as a designer, having done multiple iterations of that, working on different projects all the way up until this keyboard on something that I've never done before. Because I've solved other challenges in the past, it gives me confidence that I can figure it out in the future. And there's a great quote by the designer Massimo Vignelli. He says, "If you design one thing, you can design anything." And that quote kind of just summarizes how I feel about, the design philosophy, or the kind of attitude that I have when I look at a new creative challenge in front of me.
So how does all of that kind of like culminate with like, as as you're thinking and planning, like you mentioned, it's got a lot like DIY, like have you seen how that like it morphed into the Encore?
So how this whole design approach surfaced itself in the process of making the Encore was very similar, where I have an idea that started as a sketch. I jumped into CAD modeling, which I had learned on this project because I didn't really know CAD modeling before. And I just started blocking things out like, oh, this piece is going to be wood, this is going to be metal, and then maybe this is going to be a different chunk. So really rough, not really understanding yet how it might be machined, what kind of tolerances there are, what kind of bits are going to be used. It's just more of like, here is a vision of something that I think could work. And then getting feedback from Brad at Mode and the team at Mode, and then telling me like, oh, if you want to do this, you'll have to use this tool. And if you're going to use this tool, then the way this line is going to terminate, there has to be a curve here because we're using this rounded bit in a CNC. So it's kind of like, I make this vision of what it can be. I get the reality of what it should be, and then make the compromises in between of like, okay, well, let me fix this iteration so it work. And then just keep on building that. And at every stage, every milestone where I get to a step in the design, an iteration in the design, and I get that feedback, I'm learning and growing and then adjusting. And then, sometimes I might go 12 steps forward and realize, oh, shoot, I could have designed this so much better. Now that I have the knowledge that I have, let me go back and redo this part or clean up this part. So there were definitely a few moments in the design process of Encore where I had to go back and rethink the design. And one of those things was the bottom and the side profile, because I had designed it a particular way, which you can see a little bit in the little documentary process video I made. But probably about, I would say 4 months into the process, I kind of went back many steps to redesign the bottom and the side, just so that it respected the processes and methodology of how the CNC machine actually works. And it became so much better as a result of that. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but that's how that process kind of, or my design philosophy, or how I tend to work, has become part of the process of making the Encore.
No, I love it. When I first heard of just kind of rumors that you're doing a collaboration with a Mode designing your own keyboard, I'm like, he's going to work in White Oak. So I was really intrigued. And when I got to finally see, the design and everything, I'm like, yeah, I can tell Matthew designed this. It's like, it's a brand new thing. I've never seen it before, but at the same time, it's not like you design multiple keyboards. This is your first keyboard, but at the same time, I can see your philosophy and your design into it, even though this is the first keyboard design. So that's really inspiring. That's really cool, because as you're jumping from product to product, it's easy to lose your way. It seems like you thread the needle really well. It's a new product, but yet it's still very much, I can tell it's your stuff. So I'm going to change directions a little bit, okay? For people that work in the creative industry can probably relate to this. For those, this might be a foreign concept. Creative work takes a lot out of you in terms of just mental energy and everything, because so much of what the creative work involves is our passion, right? We're pouring into something that we love and care about, we're passionate about, that's why we're doing it. When you do a ton of that or a long day of work, you're just exhausted. And it's a different kind of exhaustion. You're just like, your mind is mush, After a long days of work, what is the first thing you do when you get home to unwind?
Creative work takes a lot out of you. And some days when you're doing a lot of critical thinking or you're just at the box for so many hours, it can take a lot out of you. So when I get home and I need to detox, usually my go-to is playing video games. And I like strategy games that are turn-based. And usually it's like resource management type of stuff. So one of the games that I really like right now is Humankind. It's from some of the developers of Civilization. So very same style of game where you're just building a civilization through time, managing resources, relationships, and growing your empire and making sure that it lasts. And it's the top empire by the end of all the turns. And it's really funny because when I was at my old job as a creative director, my wife made fun of me because we worked together and I would come home and I would play these types of games. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What? I'm just playing games." She's like, "Yeah, but all you're doing is you're managing here. Like, weren't you just managing people and projects all day at work?" I was like, huh. It's true, but it's different because there's nothing on the line here. With a video game, I think I do love that sense of control and oversight and being able to meticulously manage a lot of facets of something. So that part is actually intriguing for me and it's engaging for me. But with a video game, because there's nothing at stake, especially since I'm not competing against anybody else online, that's where it gets relaxing for me. So I just get all that stimulation and I get to zone out, and it still makes me feel good or just like a little bit productive without draining me further. So that's usually what I like to do to unwind and still keep myself engaged and occupied.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. Sometimes when I'm unwinding, I'll just rebuild a keyboard and my wife is like, "Why? You do this for work?" But it's like, no, but this is just for me. Like you say, there's nothing on the line. I'm not making content. I'm taking the thing that I enjoy using and rebuilding it. That's it. I remember my first reaction when I was introduced into the custom mechanical keyboard. And the first thought I had was, why on earth would anyone pay so much money for a keyboard? Like, what's wrong with the $20 Amazon keyboard I've been using for the last 5 years? Like, do you remember your initial thoughts when you first encountered this hobby or your first custom mechanical keyboard?
My experiences with mechanical keyboards, obviously when I was younger, I was using mechanical keyboards because that's what was already out there. And then once we went to membrane, I kind of never looked back for a long time because my Apple keyboard and my Logitech keyboard was totally fine. And I got used to this low profile membrane feel. And, it matched everything else. And I think that was a key aspect for me. It's like all my peripherals matched, my setup matched, and I really liked the wireless aspect of it. So it just felt minimal. That's kind of my steez, and it just aligned with that. And then back in 2018, I got into mechanical keyboards again because I had built a PC and I just bought a one of those gaming mechanical keyboards. And I was like, nope, this is not for me. I don't know why. It was some Logitech keyboard that was a mechanical, and it was not a fun experience. Like, why is this so tall? Why does it sound like this? It doesn't feel good. I'm just like having typos everywhere. And then so I stopped for a long time and went back to membranes. And then I think it was around 2020, 2021, and I had kind of quit my job. I had built out everything that I had at home because I got into woodworking and built a bunch of stuff out. And I ran out of stuff to build here at home. No more projects, and I don't like to have idle hands. And so I needed to tinker. And at this point, there was a lot of folks around me in my community that were just like, I'm surprised you're not into custom mechanical keyboards. I'm surprised you're not into this stuff because you're into desk accessories and all of that. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll give this another look. People keep telling me I might as well take a look. And that's when I kind of discovered Mode and Rama. And both of them had very intriguing visual designs to me in very different ways that I was like, oh, shoot, where have these been all my life? What is this thing? And then I saw the price tags, and yeah, I was a little like, yeah, it's expensive, but let me work my way into it. So first, I think I got a Keychron Q2. And then right after that, I got a Mode 65, the first version. And ever since then, I've just been hooked, where it's like the rabbit hole just went so deep, and I have not reached the bottom of it yet. But luckily, all of that time spent over the past 3 years has turned into something that I didn't expect, which is now I'm designing keyboard products, and that's pretty wild to me.
Yeah, I have a very similar journey as you of the Apple suite or the Logitech suite. Like I said, everything had to match, and I remember using, the full travel custom mechanical keyboard. I'm like it's very similar. Just like, this is too much. Like, it was, and I think, yeah, my first one was the Mode 80, and I typed on them. Oh no, it was one of those feelings of like, I know how much this cost. Oh no.
This is why.
It's like this. Everything started to make sense, and I'm in trouble. It was just that feeling. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So the mechanical keyboard community is known for its passion and the attention to detail. How do you stay connected with this community and this hobby? Because it feels like sometimes it moves at a lightning pace, right? So how do you stay connected? And the second part is like, what's your favorite platform to keep updated with keyboard news?
So for me to stay up to date with what's going on in the keyboard world, in the keyboard hobby, I really rely on content creators. I love spending time on Twitch, watching folks like Lydia, Nine Gogo, Alex Odos, Teja was the first one that I started watching. Frank Inamoshiki, and there's just so many folks. And luckily, all of these folks were also in the keyboard community, meaning they're in Discords, they're at meetups, and these are people that I've gotten to know over the years. And that's what's really kind of kept me engaged and informed. So because each of those folks, they have built good audiences, they make great content, and they get to kind of sample the latest and greatest. I got to learn a lot about keyboards through their experiences, and they're also generous with their knowledge and experiences. So I always see this every so often. A new person will come into their chat, and nobody shames them. And that's the nice thing about the keyboard community, is that you could tell when somebody's new, and usually there's a little bit of a buddy system. It's like, oh, you're new, how can I help? And I get that sense from a lot of folks in the community, and it's really nice because I experienced that coming in, and it's nice to see when others do that for other people. And I try to be the same too. Whenever a new friend wants to have a taste of like, oh, what's this custom mechanical keyboard thing about? It's like, oh, are you sure? Are you sure you want to get into this? I'll be happy to oblige. I'll be happy to help, but I want to make sure you know what you're getting into. And then, I help them out. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know yet.
I'll say it's a good thing. Yeah, I mean that's I'll say this hobby has been different, kind of like you said, man. It's a very tight knit community, and even the content creators are enmeshed into the community. So it's never like they're almost out of touch or out of reach. It's like, yeah, you
Mhm,
see, like you said, Lydia or Alex or Teja on stream, and then you can talk to them on Discord and just hang out and talk. Like no
mhm.
one, and that's what I really do love that aspect. It's very different than other hobbies or arenas I have seen, and even like you said, it's like everyone can remember when they first entered the hobby. So when they see someone new, it's like, all right, come on in. Let me tell you, here's a linear switch, here's a tactile. I love seeing that too. Of like, man, people, you're welcoming others in. How have you been welcomed in? That's a beautiful picture. Honestly, yeah, I love
Mhm,
that.
mhm. Yeah, I wanted to add on to that. I remember having a discussion with the guys at Mode, and we were chatting about kind of like the general journey of folks when they enter the custom mechanical keyboard hobby. And usually it kind of goes in three stages that we've kind of identified. The first stage is you're coming in, you don't really know what to get, and then you buy something entry level like a Keychron or something that's accessible, right? And then you kind of beat that up and mod it, and you go through all of those things and try a bunch of switches, and eventually you get to the point where you're ready to spend more money. And then stage two, you overspend. You kind of buy everything that you see because everything's exciting, everything is new. But in that part, you're trying to just discover what it is that you like, right? It's like, oh, do I like this sound or this sound? Do I like this material or this material? Do I want things that are very expressive looking or things that are a lot more minimal and restrained? You're just kind of developing your taste, and that's why you kind of go overboard. And then the third stage, which a lot of folks eventually get into, is that you have what you want. Now you're kind of just looking out for something special, right? And it's those kind of special projects that really speak to you, where it's like, wow, I've been waiting for this for a long time. And that was something that I kept in mind when I was designing the Encore. For me, it's this stage three type of person where it's like this. I'm not necessarily designing this as the entry level, but for somebody who is really looking for something a little bit different than what they've already seen, because there's hundreds of metal rectangles out there, all beautiful in their own way, but there are things that I felt was lacking, which is this nice celebration of a natural material of wood and integrating that in a way that I felt was intriguing and different than what I had seen before.
Yeah, and honestly, that's one of my most favorite aspect of the encore is it's recognizable. It's its own way. It's going to be iconic because it's one of those you see it, and like you said, it's not, you know, and I love mechanical keyboards, but you're right. At the end of the day, a lot of the metal rectangles look exactly the same, especially when you're using it. But the Encore, you look at it, go, that's an Encore, because of how the way you blend the wood and the aluminum together. It just, yeah, no, I love that so much. Can you tell me a little bit more? So, like, when you were kind of looking at to design the Encore, what made you like selected Mode as the company that you want to collaborate with?
I decided to work with Mode on the Encore because they reached out to me. It's so interesting. With any of the relationships that I get into when it comes to collaborations or working with folks, it's not something that happens out of the blue. It's something that develops over a long period of time. So if I go back to my partnership with GroveMade, developing a product with them, I was working on different content collaborations with them for probably about 2 to 3 years before they asked me to design a product with them. And it was the same thing with Mode, where I was interested in their product. I slid into their DMs. I started making content around that Mode 65 that I had purchased first. They paid attention. They asked if I wanted to check out their sonnet. I made a video about the sonnet, and then I DIY'd a little wood accent for that thing. They were wondering, should this be a product? Do you want to make this an official thing? We made it a product that sold through. They ended up making more wood accents as a result of that. And then from there, it just felt natural. It felt very good because we had developed this relationship over time. They're great people. I feel like they had a good experience with me. And it's one of those things, like, it's just escalating until the point where they saw the opportunity because of I think one of the reasons was that little documentary project I did with GroveMade. It's like, here's a product I developed over 2 years, and here's how I made it. That was a great calling card for me, for external folks to see what it's like to work with me and the results of that thing. So I think that also helped Mode see that, oh shoot, maybe this guy can do more. Maybe there's more to him than what we've previously done before. So it escalated, and it was just one of those things. I saw so much potential in what they've done. I've pretty much purchased all of their products. I've loved all of their products, and I think their brand in terms of their design and their customer experience is exceptional compared to everything else that I've experienced in the custom mechanical keyboard hobby. So they were just the perfect fit for me when it came to designing the Encore.
For whatever it's worth, it was your sonnet video that kind of got me to buy my first sonnet. I watched that video, I'm going, I'm gonna do it. I'm thinking I'm gonna do it. So when you released the sonnet accent, I'm like, also copying that one. So
Right. I appreciate the support of that.
yeah, absolutely. And people have offered. It's like, hey, I heard you got one. Can I buy it? I'm like, no, go away.
Right.
So, okay. As an educator with the future, you help countless creatives develop their skills. So, how has your experience teaching informed your approach to designing keyboards, especially in terms of collaboration and feedback?
My past experiences as a creative director working with clients really helped my process for working with Mode on the Encore, because it was just like any design project, being very clear about the goals, the parameters, and then being clear and transparent about the thought process along the way as we make our decisions. That very much aligns with my experiences in education, teaching the things that I know. So whenever there was an opportunity where somebody in the project needed a little bit more information, I tried my best to obviously be transparent and clear about how and why I'm doing something, try to teach them why I'm doing certain things. At the same time, when I'm designing the Encore, I'm documenting the whole process with the intent to teach other folks how and why I did those things, right? And there are multiple reasons to do that. One reason is because I have had the great opportunity of having great teachers and role models around me throughout my life that have helped me grow. And if I can do that for other folks, then that is a win for me, because if I could help one person see the possibilities and opportunities that they didn't know were available to them, then that is a huge win for me. So that's a key reason why I do it. The other aspect too, I think, is there's a lot of shallow content on the internet that I don't really watch. I love watching content that has a lot of depth. And that could be depth in storytelling, that can be depth in knowledge and information. And that's what I try to put into the content that I make, where I try to show the novel things that I had to learn because they were a little out of reach for me. So if I can surface that and try to make that clear and digestible for somebody else, then I know that that will be something that could potentially be engaging for my audience. And that's how education and my design experience has kind of interwoven itself into the process of designing and documenting the Encore.
Yeah. So if there's one key piece of advice you could offer to someone who's aspiring to design their own keyboard, what would that be?
If there's one key piece of advice that I have for aspiring keyboard designers, it's to learn how to study, learn how to learn. I think that is the biggest skill set that actually anybody could learn. And what do I mean by learning how to learn? It's just knowing that if you have a goal, all you have to know is how to ask the right questions. Because if you ask the right questions, the internet, the universe, your friends, your community, they'll be able to answer, right? So if you kind of type up or put out into the ethos, how do I design a keyboard? You might not get a great answer. You'll get a lot of stuff on the surface, a lot of things that just might not be that relevant. But if you're into the process and you kind of learn a little bit about maybe some of the major steps, that's the surface level that you're learning. What's the next thing? What is a detailed question that you could ask next? It's like, well, how do you model a keyboard in CAD? That might be the next level, right? So you're asking another detailed question. And then once you're getting into CAD and you're kind of working on modeling there, then you look at specifics about features, right? Like, well, how do I put a bezel here or a chamfer? Or how do I round this edge? Or how do I mirror the modeling here? And then you get that, kind of like third level deep of just asking very specific questions. And these things only happen is if you start asking questions, you learn a little bit, and then you ask a next deeper question. So to me, that's my kind of thought process when it comes to learning how to learn, because if you can come up with that and just keep digging a little bit deeper below the surface, by the time you're done with your project, you'll realize you're 20 levels deep. You've learned a lot of things, and you've accomplished the thing that you wanted to make. And all the skills that you've learned along the way, you get to bring with you for the rest of your life. You get to bring with you into your next experience, into your next project. So that would be my key advice for aspiring creatives or designers: is learn how to learn and go 10 steps, 20 steps deep.
I love that. Yeah, no, have a curious mind and figure it out and go. I love that. Yeah. So a few months back, you launched your X-ray keycaps, which it's got a really cool, striking design with the white base and transparent layer, and then you collaborate with Salvin for the artisan keycaps and creating the matching packaging and surrounding this whole X-ray theme. Recently, you announced your collaboration with Wired N and the X-ray theme custom cable. So I have to ask, are there any plans for an X-ray themed Encore keyboard in the future?
Uh, I so X-Ray has been a fantastic project, and just one little correction there. The Artisan was designed by Max Voltar, and it's being manufactured by Salvin. So I don't want to diminish any of that, because Max is an amazing designer in himself, and you should have him on your show if you can get a hang of him. Um, but in terms of X-Ray Encore, I was actually thinking about that this morning. Like, what would that look like? Maybe is it a polycarbonate mid piece with a metal top and then a heavy metal bottom? Is it a polycarbonate bottom and then a heavy mid piece, like a brass mid piece with wood on top? I don't know. I've always thought about what that could be, but I haven't really thought that through. We're just about to finish launching the second batch of Encore. And for me, it's just like, let me just get over this hump and get that out the door before I think about the next thing to do. Because it's really hard for me to focus on multiple things. I just like to focus on one thing, get it out the door, and then my mind frees up to think about the next.
Well, I look forward to it. So fast forward to 2025. What trends in the keyboard hobby and community are you most excited about today?
So if I'm to look forward into the future, what I would hope to be seeing is more interesting explorations with materials, right? One of the things that I obviously went into the Encore was with how do we integrate different materials, and wood being that thing. Seeing other folks like I think it was Functional Design Co. Like they do stuff with like live edge wood and resin, I believe, that's really beautiful. And then even the folks over at Brazen, like they have done all the stuff with engineered stone and created keyboards out of molds. So I have their the Brazen Zen 60, which is made out of gemsonite. Like those are all beautiful things. So I hope this trend continues where we get to see fantastic integrations of different materials that just when they're sitting on your desk, you're like, wow, that's different and it's elegant, right? It's tasteful. Because for me, I see so much in the keyboard space where a lot of maximalist design, because people feel confined in the, well, it's metal, we're going to CNC it, and let's just keep throwing stuff at it, right? And that has its own purpose, that has its own audience. That's not necessarily for me. If I like the simplicity and pulling things back and just celebrating, ooh, that is a nice looking material, how can we accentuate that or highlight that in the best way? So in 2025, I'm hoping that we just see more interesting exploration with materials.
Yeah, I would love that. Like, and I think that's something that people outside the hobby miss at times of like, why this? Why so much money, so much time into this? It's like there's just something about like you found the keyboard that you just when you get to your desk, you look at it and you just smile. Like you don't dread
Right.
typing on it, you don't dread working. Like your workspace is actually a place where you feel comfortable, that you want to create, that you want to like put effort in. So yeah, I would love to see that in 2025 of just like a mixed material keyboard. Just go, that's awesome. I'm glad I'm here. It's like work
Mhm.
is work, but I'm glad that I'm here. So
Right.
before we wrap up, I always like to ask this kind of a fun preference thing, because so much of this community is about preferences, right? So, do you prefer scooped keycap or bar keycaps, and why?
For the longest time, I have been on team bars because I like that the keycap profile is uniform. So it always bugged me visually seeing scooped FNJs. Uh, However, I think when I was typing on, it might have been Joran's keyboard that he brought over to Keep Life in 2022. I forget what the year now, but I experienced it and it was a scoop F&J. I was like, oh, this is nice. I can find home real quick. I was like, oh, that's why. So a couple of the keyboards I've been building lately have been using scoops. So I'm not getting converted, but I can see why one would like that over the other, the benefit. So I like, I mean, my preferences change all the time. So I'm not closed-minded to things. It's just I had my reason before, and now I'm starting to see a different way.
A lot of people in my close circle make fun of me, calling me like I'm a geriatric millennial because I prefer bars.
Oh,
I grew up using bars. Like scoop
yeah,
wasn't even a thing. Like.
right.
So I recently start building a couple keyboards with the GMK MTNU, and all they give you is scoops. So I'm
Mm,
forced to use it, and now I'm using it. I'm like, I kind of like it.
yeah, yeah,
I'm actually kind of enjoying this. Oh no,
yeah.
But you're right. Like,
It's easier to find than the bars. Really, like the tactility of that thing. It just your fingers get stuck there. It's magnetized. So I get it.
yeah. But I agree with you. It's the visual is what it does kill me, especially when I'm taking pictures. I see that deeper scoop. I'm going,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
very cool. Well, Matthew, that's all I have for today. I really appreciate your time, kind of, giving us an insight of your journey in designing the Encore and just even your experience in being a creative, entering into this hobby, and even from a personal point of view, not just, so I really appreciate it. But yeah, that's all I got. So
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing the X-rayed Encore soon.
We'll see. We'll see,
Yeah, it's
man.
confirmed today. It's happening.
Confirm nor deny. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me, man. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you. You have a good night.
You too.